Hi and welcome. This is how and where ASO overlaps with SEO. It's a presentation about mobile search optimization for apps and websites, and I hope you enjoy it.
All right. So thank you for the awesome introduction, and I'm so excited to be following Peggy on this one because I think she made a bunch of really interesting points, and so excited to be participating today and talking about how and where ASO overlaps with SEO. So like they said, I have been doing mobile marketing, app marketing, web marketing for a very long time. I started doing it in about 2005, which, if you'll recall, was before the iPhone. And actually, I think Peggy's been doing it as long, or maybe even longer. So we've been in the same circles for a long time. So I'm the CEO of a company called MobileMoxie, and we do mobile SEO and ASO consulting, and we have a mobile SEO and ASO toolset. So that might bring up the question, what is all this SEO and ASO? So SEO stands for search engine optimization, so it means getting things to rank in Google, basically. And ASO is app search optimization, which means a variety of different things, but it's basically getting your apps to rank where people are searching for them. And in the early days of the web, these were thought of as two very different things. And me and the people at my company, MobileMoxie, were the first to kind of look at these things holistically. To say, hey, these really do work together and you can use one to promote the other, and they shouldn't be just separate things. And I think as we move into the future, we're seeing more and more convergence, more and more overlap, and that's especially true with companies like AppyPie that let you build once and be really nimble, because in the old days, you would have to build three different things, basically: an iOS app, an Android app, and a website. But with companies like AppyPie, you don't have to work so hard, at least on the build. But the marketing is still different. So it's important to understand that there are similarities for sure, but there are also differences. And so the main difference between SEO and ASO is just that, that ASO is for apps and SEO is for web. And like I said, in the old days, you would have to build and do everything separately, and you would have to do it twice for apps, once for iOS, once for Android, and then again for web with HTML and JavaScript. And then do the marketing very much separately. And from a search perspective, a discovery perspective, what you're relying on when you go to an app store and search for an app, or when you go to Google and search for a website, or search for an app in Google, you're dealing with algorithms. And so that's what we live and breathe, is algorithms. How do we make these algorithms like what we're trying to market and rank it well for the keywords that we're trying to market it for? So that gets us into this idea that Peggy was saying, which is that mobile is becoming even more important than it ever has been. And it's just growing, and especially with COVID, people are spending more time away from their potentially work computer, and they're spending more time on their phones, really, doing things like coordinating kids' school schedules, coordinating their own schedules, and they're more reliant on phones to help them manage their day-to-day life, whether it's keeping on top of their calendar as they work from home, or keeping on top of ordering groceries, or any of the things like that. So the average person now spends 3.7 hours per day in mobile, and that's quite a lot. But with that, the next important statistic to know is that 90% of a normal user's time spent on their phone is actually in apps. And that's compelling. If 3.7 hours a day, which is more than people spend on TV, are spent looking at a phone, and that's all in apps, that seems like it's really like a huge potential for us as marketers, that we really need to be doing everything we can with apps. And in some cases that's very true, and then in other cases there's a little bit of hedging, and you have to kind of think about it a little bit differently. So when we're talking about 90%, it's maybe not as good as you might think, because if you had to guess, let's do a quick survey. How many apps do you think most people download in a given month? Just guess in your head. Okay. So most people are surprised to find out that the average number of apps in most places downloaded per month to a phone is 0. Some studies show the average is 0. Now, other studies break it down into more granular information, and what they say is 51% of users download 0 apps per month, and 13% of users download 1 app per month. But that's still not a lot. So if you're building an app and thinking, oh, 90% of mobile time is spent in apps, I'm going to kill it with this app, that might not be as realistic as you think, because the reality is that between the 0 and the 1 apps that are downloaded, 75% of apps are used only once after being downloaded and then never used again. So that one that the 13% are downloading, maybe it doesn't even matter because it was only opened once. So it's really, really a tough marketplace to be in, because people, for the most part, think they have all the apps that they need. And while they are spending a lot of time in apps, 75%, or actually more than 77% of a user's time in apps is spent just in their top 3 apps. And this statistic is even more deceptive, because the top 3 apps are often long-form engagement kinds of apps that you don't even think about sometimes as apps. So things like Netflix. If you're binge watching on Netflix, that really blows out the statistic of how much time you're spending in that app. Similarly, things like Google Maps. If you're doing driving directions and using that, that's a long-form engagement where these apps are taking up a lot of time, much more time than you would ever spend on a website, but it's because they're going on as a main form of activity, or in the background as you drive. They're managing some kind of other activity, or they're on while you're cooking in the background, and so you're doing things with the apps rather than focusing entirely on the apps. Now that's not good or bad, but it does skew the data quite a bit, because if you're not Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Netflix, Google Maps, or potentially a chat app, the leftover time in apps that's available is significantly smaller. So it's true what Peggy said, is the product and the marketing go together, and it's nearly impossible to market a product that doesn't at least do some of the marketing itself. You can't just market something and assume people will like it because it's there. It has to be a little bit more than that. But it is actually quite tough to get the attention that most companies want on their apps, to get the eyeballs, to get the engagement. It's tough because there are some heavy hitters out there that really skew the data. So let's talk about app rankings and the concept of ASO. I usually break it down into 3 different parts, and this is actually even still, I started talking about ASO this way probably 5 years ago, and even still, this is groundbreaking to some, because some people think about app optimization or app search optimization as just optimizing rankings in the stores. But as I said, we've always looked at it a bit more holistically. So we look at it as when we're doing ASO, we're trying to drive app rankings in the category. So the app stores are all broken into different categories: business, utilities, games, whatever. We want to drive apps to rank at the top of that, but that is actually mostly done by app downloads. So yes, we want to be top of our category, but that's a representation of how we're doing, but not necessarily the only representation of what we're doing or how we're doing, because those app categories can be quite competitive, and they're broad. There are a lot of utilities that are good apps, even if they're not in the top 10 of the iOS, utilities category. So we have to say, yes, we want top category rankings, but we also want top rankings on app search on our keywords. So if people are looking for generic things, they don't know exactly what they want, they're looking for a weather tracker or a run tracker or a cooking app or something like that, we want to make sure that our app is ranking for those kinds of searches. But, and here's what a lot of app professionals forget, we also need these apps to rank well in Google. And that's where the overlap really starts to come in between SEO and ASO. Because what we're going to find out is Google is more important for apps than most app marketers think. So let's back it up and let's talk about traditional ASO. Traditional ASO started by really just focusing on adding keywords to the app submission in the title, the description, stuff like that, to make sure that when people search for those keywords, we ranked well. That's kind of the basic concept of ASO. And then if you're a big player, if you're a big brand, and you can easily drive a lot of downloads, that's where you get into competing on the category ranking. We want to be the top shopping app. And that's less keyword oriented, but the keyword rankings drive to some degree the category rankings as well, because if you have lots of downloads from ranking well on all your keywords, then you're going to have high enough downloads to place in the category ranking. But then, things are different between iOS and Android. So you get into this cycle where you might have to do one thing for iOS and another thing for Android. And this is can be especially true with categories, because the two stores have different categories. They mostly match up, but not always, and you get to choose different numbers of categories for different things, especially as you get into games and kids apps. There's a difference in how the things break down, but these are things that big apps really do strive for, and so they're specific to the store. Your category ranking will be different between Android and iOS, and then it will also change from country to country. So if you have an app that is available in more than one country, you may have a category ranking for your chosen category as number 3 in the United States, but number 5 in Mexico, or things like that. So it can be kind of a constant thing that you've done it here, but now you need to do it here. You've done it in iOS, now you need to do it in Android. You've done it in iOS US, but now you need to do it in iOS Japan. Things like that. So there is actually a lot to think about, especially if what you want is to get maximum exposure in all the places where your app could be used, theoretically, in all the places that speak the language that the app is written in. So that's category rankings kind of look like this, and it's something that you can track over time, and it is an important metric. But keyword rankings look more like this, and these screenshots are coming out of the MobileMoxie tools. We track both by just, you put in your app ID and your keywords and your categories, and bam, now we can see when they change, when they go up in all the different countries and stuff like that. So category rankings look like this, keyword rankings look like this, and they also are specific to the different countries and specific to the stores. And when we work on ASO metadata, we actually do separate keyword research to see what are people searching for in iOS and in Android, and then in that particular country, because even when people speak the same language, sometimes they search differently. And believe it or not, the demographic differences and some of the use case differences between iOS and Android actually can change how people search for certain kinds of apps. And so we have to do the keyword research separately, and then we say, okay, lots of people are searching for these couple of keywords here. We want to rank for these here, but over here, they're searching for slightly different keywords. We want to modify what we're targeting in our ASO to target those top keywords, to get as many people downloading as we possibly can. And then we track this and say, did the ranking on that keyword go up or down over time? And you can see we even do, there's a concept in SEO of broad match and exact match. So we say, show me all of the keywords, in this case, that include casino or something like that. And so you can say, that's broad match because it's all the keywords that include casino. Did we lose all the casino keywords, or did we just lose on this one exact match only the word casino, not casino games or casino apps or casino iOS or whatever? So you can do broad match, or you can just say, I just want to see how this one keyword is performing in all of the countries where we have, where we're tracking it for this particular app. So being able to see keywords like this, where you can see both iOS and Android variations of the keyword in all the countries side by side, lets you see, did we make a change that impacted us everywhere, or is it just in this country, and is it just this keyword, or is it all keywords that include this keyword? And that's something that a lot of the app tracking software doesn't do very well, because they don't have the background in SEO, but because we're used to doing keyword tracking like this for SEO, we built the tool to kind of make that easier to see on a large scale, how are we looking and what are the trends, and are they just, potentially just in one store. That may mean there was an algorithm shift for one store but not the other. If we only updated, if we only saw a drop off and didn't have any updates to the metadata. There's a lot you can tell, and there's a lot you can look for when you have data that's this granular. So let's talk about ASO and what we do in an ASO project. Companies will come to us and they say, we're launching an app and we want it to really, really just be awesome and take off. And so we say, okay, here's what we need to do to get it to take off. We start with the static ranking factors, because these are the easiest to understand. These are, where do you put, when you've done keyword research, where do you put these keywords where they're going to do the most value? And this is things like the title, subtitle, short description, keyword tag for iOS, the long description, choosing the right category, because sometimes it's not obvious what category you should choose. And if you choose a less competitive category, you may be able to pop up to the top 10 much easier. And then knowing what country are we launching in, what can we expect from that country, and how potentially in some cases related country metadata can actually impact other countries. And so we look at all of that. And then we look at the technical specs too. And this is more focused in Android, where technical specs like size and stuff like that can help you rank. But these factors, these static ranking factors, they're given different weights. So the title is given often more weight than the long description. And in iOS, it's not even clear that the long description is really counted. So there are different algorithms that weigh things differently, that count the optimization differently. So that's where the nuance comes in, is we have a lot of people that come to us and say, oh, well, we've always used the exact same metadata for iOS and Android. And that's not always, that's fast, but it's not always strategic. So we try and help add in the strategic element there. And then there's also dynamic ranking factors. And dynamic ranking factors are really one of the things that set ASO apart from SEO. Because dynamic ranking factors are something that can be, in some cases, easy to manipulate, and some cases hard. And when I say manipulate it, I mean it with love. I mean to encourage. But we want to make these stats look good to the algorithm so that it becomes easier to rank on all of the keywords that we were optimizing for with the static ranking factors. So things like download volume, download velocity, rating volume, rating quality, engagement, installs, uninstalls, those kinds of things, they're dynamic because it's like a moving train. It's a constant thing. So we want positive dynamic ranking factors or ranking signals for the algorithm, and those positive dynamic ranking signals are going to make it easier for us to rank on the keywords that we've optimized for, even if those keywords are highly competitive. So something like a keyword like weather app, there are loads of weather apps, but if we have all 5-star rankings and they all came in the matter of 2 days, and it's thousands, where we've just blown people's minds with this amazing weather app, then even if we have other factors that are not quite as good, the dynamic ranking factors can make it easier for us to float to the top of even very competitive keywords. So we optimize both of these things, and we help companies with a strategy for driving strong dynamic ranking factors, as well as creating and updating and modifying their static ranking factors. And I have to say that the biggest ranking factor that can help you the most is star ratings and reviews. And having strong download velocity with those strong ratings and reviews. And so it used to be that this was something that was easy to manipulate, but it's gotten harder, especially in iOS, because they've kind of pulled the ability to promote and encourage people to review into their own little software, where it used to be that you can just bother people and say, hey, review our app, review our app, review our app, and make sure that you're getting lots of reviews. The problem is that can always backfire. If you're bothering people too much, then they'll give you 1 star. So even where you can still kind of encourage reviews, you're not allowed to incentivize reviews with free coins in a game or anything like that in either of the stores. But it's easier to drive strong ratings and reviews in Android because they're more flexible with you encouraging reviews during the process of an app user's experience. But ultimately, it's better to not really try and game this too much and just create a really compelling experience. And this is what Peggy was getting at earlier. If you have a really compelling experience, then you're naturally going to get lots of good star ratings and reviews. You're naturally going to have strong download velocity. So yeah, there's an element of where you can game this, but ultimately the better the app is, the less you have to worry about things like that. Now, the other thing that you can do that really makes ASO different from SEO in the dynamic factors is you can drive download volume and velocity by buying ads. So this, when I tell people who've done SEO this for years, it blows their mind. But essentially, if you are paying for ads in the store, paying for ads in Google, sending out emails, paying for TV spots, if you're doing any of those things to help encourage download volume and velocity in the App Store and getting people to download your app, that's going to make your app look better to the keyword part of the algorithm, because they're going to say, wow, there are a lot of people that really, really want this app. People really think this app is cool. There's a lot of demand for this app. We should probably make it easier to rank on all of those keywords. And in fact, what we've found is that the sensitivity of the algorithm to download volume and velocity seems to be higher at the initial launch of an app, and even to some degree after app updates. Because what that says to the algorithm, let's say for an app launch, if you've launched a brand new app today and all of a sudden you just get a flood of downloads, that means to the algorithm, you've done a good job pre-marketing it, you've done a good job letting everyone know that today was the launch day, and there's all this pent-up demand where people are like, oh my gosh, I really, really want this app, when's it going to launch? And then immediately when it launches, they download it. That looks like an app that the store would want to rank because there's so much pent-up demand. So algorithmically, doing stuff like that can be really great for helping you rank on the keywords that you want. But the other stuff, the static ranking factors, it's a bit more dry, and it's something that you can kind of set and then move on and focus on dynamic ranking factors for a while. We don't recommend leaving your app metadata to sit forever, but things like title, short description, and long description, those are things that people can see in the stores. And so they need to have keywords, but also be compelling for users. And I see you guys have rejoined. Are you wanting to chat with me?
We have some questions coming in. So if you wanted to take now or if you wanted to wait till you're done, it's up to you. Let me know, Cindy. I can read them out loud now, or if you wanted to wait till you're done with your presentation.
If it's okay, let's wait. And I'll just keep going. Cool. Okay. So most of the metadata and most of the static optimization elements are visible in the stores. So this is what it looks like on Android, and this is what it looks like on iOS. The big difference between iOS and Android is the keyword tag. So in iOS, you have a keyword tag that's 100 characters long, and you can see it in the bottom of the slide. Users can't see what you put in here, and neither can your competitors. So there are limitations. You can't knowingly violate or infringe on people's trademarks, but you can get quite creative with what you put in your keyword tag, and it is weighted somewhat heavily in iOS. So you have 100 characters to optimize here, and spaces and commas count the same. It's very much like SEO in 1995. So what we recommend is not wasting space, not wasting keyword space by putting comma space, keyword comma space, but instead just stringing all your keywords together and separating them only with a comma. That usually gets you one more keyword. We also recommend front loading it to put your most important keywords in the beginning, but not bothering to repeat with keywords that are in your app title, or usually it's not even necessary to repeat keywords that are in your category. So if you're a game, you don't necessarily need to include the word game in your keywords tag. Usually the keyword only has to appear once in the category title or short description, or excuse me, subtitle, to have effect. So there's a lot of strategy there. The other thing is that unlike Google, iOS is not as good at understanding how language works. And so variations of a keyword like synonyms, children versus kids is a big one. They've gotten better at understanding when there are relationships or synonyms between keywords, but the safest bet is always to include both if they're coming up in your keyword research. And same thing with ending variations on a word like ing or ed or er, track versus tracker. It's best to include both. Either, if hopefully one is in your title, and then you can include the other in your keyword tag. But this is basically what that looks like. You have different character limits for all of the things in the static ranking factors, and you want to be compelling, but also put as many keywords as you can without making it seem stuffed. So you've got to balance, users reading it versus bots reading it. It shouldn't seem keyword stuffed. It should seem like it's regular marketing copy, but just don't forget that the keywords matter too. So let's see. So one of the biggest things that happens when we talk to clients is they just want to include their brand name as the title of the app. And while it's true that that's what people search for a lot, we do think it's a good idea to build it out. And I'll show you here. So even some of the top apps out there that really don't need that much marketing, they don't just put their brand name. They describe what they are and what they do in case a person's not sure, in case a person needs some kind of validation, and to drive rankings on the more long tail, less branded keywords out there. And the other thing to know is that the app title that shows up on your phone is different from the title that shows up in the store. And the title that shows up in the store is the one that counts for ASO values. So here you can see on the right we have just kayak, but on the left it's longer and it's got the other keywords. That's the one that matters for ASO. And the shorter one, called the bundle display name in iOS, that one, it doesn't actually impact ASO. So the other thing is just the long description. We recommend putting keywords in your long description for both iOS and Android apps, even though algorithmically it's not clear that in iOS it's really counted in their algorithm, but it is still relevant for Google ranking the app, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. So other things that are important, the timing of a app change, like an update, can actually be something that you take advantage of. If you know your competitor has a scheduled update, then you can do things with your app to make the most of that scheduled update, because some of the dynamic statistics reset with every update. So you'll have higher statistics than them until they build back up. The other thing is being able to track you or your competitors and know what's changed when. And so we have a tool that does that for every version of your app in all the countries and stuff like that. So you can know when we did an update, what changed. Did we change the title? What did it used to be? Because sometimes it's important to go back into history and say, oh, well, we lost a lot of traffic and downloads and rankings here. What changed during that time? And was it, just the version and the file size, or was it more? Did we change the metadata we were using? We actually had a client that kept accidentally deleting their app short description, and they would just tank. And we didn't know who was doing it, but we could always correlate their loss in downloads back to when someone, not us, accidentally would delete that and just leave it blank. And so you can, in our tools, we let you see when was the last change, what was the last change, and even drill down, and we'll say, this on this date, this is what the app title was, and then it changed, and here's the new one. So it's great for going back and seeing what was working and what's not working now. But here's the sticking point. Now, apps have changed, and people used to browse the store casually looking for what kinds of apps are available, but now 9 out of 10 of the top keyword searches in the App Store are branded. Now there's a reason to still optimize for the other keywords, and it's Google, and I'll talk about it more in just a second. But know that in the stores themselves, in Google Play and the App Store, your brand name is doing most of the work. The other keywords are supporting and help for browsing activity when it's there. But mostly now it's changed where they're supporting app discovery outside of the stores in Google. And the reality is that most people are learning about new brands in Google. You can see Google is the very top source for new brand discovery. And if you have a new app, then you're a new brand. The next one is ads on television. So this is what Peggy was talking about, where we have to start thinking about apps like products and making sure that we're optimizing them for where people find new products. And it's not the store. They don't start their discovery experience in the store. They often start it in Google. In fact, 50% of app searches start in Google, not in the stores. But Google has a much more diverse keyword set. People aren't just searching for branded things there, and they have a lot of different kinds of things that rank in Google. It's not just about blue links anymore. Sometimes it's app landing pages from the stores that rank. It's these app packs, and all of these other things that can rank in Google. So this used to be the only thing we could rank when we were adding keywords to long descriptions, because Google crawls the app stores just like they crawl other websites. But now we have these app packs, and this is a whole new algorithm that's different from the iOS algorithm, different from the Android algorithm, and different from the Google at-large algorithm. And so we need to drive rankings in app packs. And this is where ASO really just goes back to regular marketing. And it's important to be here, and it's important to know that just because you see something on your phone doesn't mean it's the same on every phone. And in fact, app packs are specific to the operating system, so you can see the same keyword drives different apps in iOS than Android, because there are different apps in the store that could rank for that same query. So you have to know what's happening in iOS and what's happening in Android, especially for these app packs. And it's something that's worthy of tracking because they'll change pretty regularly for the different keywords, and this is where the broader keyword searches are happening. And it's important to know that between iOS and Android, not every keyword that triggers an app pack on an iOS phone will trigger an app pack on an Android phone. They're using a different algorithm to see when should an app pack show up, how many apps should be displayed. It's usually 3, but it can be more, it can be less, it can be an app single. And where on the page should it be displayed? Should it be displayed at the top or maybe somewhere at the bottom? So this is where the differences between app and web really overlap. And we also have a tool for this, and I'm just going to show it to you quickly. So it's location specific. You put in the keyword in testing view. You can choose any phones that you want. We recommend always choosing an iOS and an Android phone. And then you can run the test and you can see what is ranking, including ads, including this disambiguation thing at the top. When we search for this important keyword in Google, what are we competing with? Should we be in those ads? And what are the apps that are showing up in the app pack? How many apps are in the app pack? And what are the differences between iOS and Android? So it's important to know what you're up against and watch these things. And we let you not only test this live, but also track it and look at exactly what's there, either on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, or whatever you want. So in the end, we're wrapping it up. The similarities, both SEO and ASO focus on keywords, user signals, and technical success of the app. But of course, there are differences, and it's mainly in the algorithms and in what kinds of keywords work where, and what kinds of searches happen in the different places. So that's my talk. I've given you guys 30 days free in our tools, if you want to try it out, the promo code is AppyPie. And if you have any questions, my Twitter name is Suzix, SUZZICKS, or you can email me. And we love helping people with stuff like this. And we help also get the websites to drive app downloads as well, or websites just to drive website traffic. So it all comes together, and that's what we love at MobileMoxie. So that's it.
If you like this video, hit the thumbs up. To be notified about future videos, click the logo. And to try the MobileMoxie Mobile SEO Toolset, use the promo code YouTube to get 30 days free. They're mobile-first SEO tools for a mobile-first world.